Welcome to Marrow Masters Season 13, brought to you by the National Bone Marrow Transplant Link and sponsored by Sanofi. The NBMT Link, established in 1992, strives to help patients, caregivers, and families cope with the psychosocial challenges of bone marrow and stem cell transplant, from diagnosis through survivorship. This season, we'll be focusing on the side effects of bone marrow and stem cell transplant, including GVHD. Here's your host, Executive Director of the NBMT Link, Peggy Burkhardt.
Welcome, everyone. So today we have with us Rachael Sommer from Cleveland, Ohio, and she is a caregiver to her daughter, Maddie. Rachael is going to share her thoughts today about being a caregiver and a mom. So welcome, Rachael. So happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Peggy. Thanks for inviting me and allowing me to share our story.
Great. Let's get started. So let's have you talk about Maddie and her diagnosis and her transplant, just to kind of set the scene.
Yeah, just a little context. Last July 2023, my daughter started getting sick with kind of a mystery illness. We were here in Cleveland getting treated at Rainbow Babies and Children, went through a lot of testing over several months and could not figure out what was going on. Her spleen was getting really huge. And we ended up going twice for a second opinion to Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus, which has been great. And we're so grateful for the team. But in October 16th, I believe it was, of 2023, Maddie received her diagnosis of Hepatosplenic T-cell Lymphoma, which they were able to diagnose from a bone marrow biopsy down in Nationwide Children's Hospital. And she is 12 and she'll be 13 on July 4th this year.
Thank you, Rachael. Thanks for sharing that. So we're going to move now to talking about when Maddie got home. What was expected? What was unexpected? And what did you learn from all of that?
Yeah, it was interesting because we didn't go straight home since we were at Nationwide in Columbus. We stayed at the Ronald McDonald House for a little bit. And there she was pretty okay, I guess I would say. Like, she was tired, but she wanted to do things and be a little bit active. And so we were there about almost a month. And then we came home and I just was surprised at how differently things changed so quickly. She was sleeping a lot. Like, at some points it would be 6 p.m. and she hadn't even gotten up for the day.
Okay.
I was really worried, but the doctors told me that that's a normal reaction as a side effect of radiation, as well as just like being out of breath from very simple things like walking down the stairs or, I don't know, closing curtains, things like that. So I just had to kind of adjust to a new normal and like just be in communication with the doctors and check on things and see how that affected her. I think for me, it was just, dealing with the nervous energy that I felt being worried about her and having, finding ways to deal with that. So shout out to Ronald McDonald House because they have a fitness room and like to work out to get out my nervous energy. So that was really helpful. And being able to cook there is helpful as well.
Oh, that's great to hear. When you mentioned the fatigue, that is so real. We hear that again and again. I talked to a woman the other day who said just getting to the bottom of the driveway to get the mail, she couldn't even do that the first months. And then now she's walking 2-3 miles a day. So we do hear that and we know it's temporary, but it's so hard to accept, I think.
Yeah, I just think it's especially hard when you're a kid and you're seeing all the things your friends are doing and can do or things that you used to do and you can't. And so I think even having visits with friends has been helpful, but hard because she even apologizes to her friends like, I'm sorry, I'm not more active. I'm just so tired, And of course they're understanding, but
sure,
mentally it's hard.
I can imagine. So Rachael, let's talk about the emotional and social wellness aspect of early survivorship, how that went for you and for Maddie.
Yeah, so I was just talking about her friends. I mean, being away from friends was really hard. And even though we have great technology, obviously now, FaceTime is just not a replacement for spending time with kids. And especially I think kids these days, like when I was a kid, we used to talk on the phone for hours. Kids don't talk on the phone these days.
They don't.
We've tried to like even figure out like gaming systems and things like that. But, Wi-Fi at the hospital and all the connectivity issues made that hard. And kids all play different gaming systems. And so the schedules, it was just really hard to connect. And we had a lot of people like sending, cards and notes and things that I like really am grateful for. And she's grateful too, but she was like, Mom, I just want to see my friends. Like, I don't want one more card. And, you feel bad because you don't want to tell people like, don't send us cards because it's very thoughtful. But it's just like, what does she need right now? And another part of that was her cats. So she has last summer, right around her birthday time, she got 2 kittens. Their names are Binks and Leon. And so she really missed them. And it took me a while to figure it out. I don't know why I didn't think of this earlier, but towards the end of our hospital stay and recovery in Columbus, we did finally get like a Google camera to put in the house. And so we try to like look at the cats playing in the house and talk to them through the camera and stuff. So that was really fun for her. I think just I had to adjust my expectations of her emotions and my emotions. Like we have different love languages and the things that comfort me were not the things that comfort her. So like, even though she liked music, she kind of stopped liking music for a while. She didn't want to hear singing. She didn't want any music on. She was really quiet. When we got home, she was like barely spoke. I was really scared that like I had lost her, like in the sense of like her personality and her
spirit,
her sarcastic nature, all those things that like maybe sometimes drove me crazy before. So that was pretty nerve-wracking initially. And then, she's slowly starting to get back to herself. She's definitely getting angry at her brother and yelling at him. So that's a good sign.
That's funny.
And being sarcastic to me. So I'm now grateful for that. I think, for me, it was just, a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry. I'm a very active person. I have a lot of energy. And so to not feel energy and to feel like I can't get out of bed, can't wake up. Like I usually, like today, I got up at 4. I usually get up around 4:20 and go work out. I couldn't get up because I'd just be so down and worried. I felt kind of isolated, even though there's a lot of people around supporting, but it's just like, they don't know, I guess, exactly what you're going through. And it's not their fault. Everybody's trying to do their best they can to be helpful. So sometimes I just felt like I didn't always use the best coping mechanisms. I can be honest and say I probably drank a little too much during this time. And it's something that I had to work on. But
sure,
I did meet people through Facebook groups, and that was really helpful. And I met 2 other parents who had kids who went through this exact same cancer, which was very helpful because I didn't think I was going to meet anybody with how rare this cancer was. And that was a big helpful support to me emotionally.
Oh, that is great to hear. We're talking about the caregiver, and this whole season is about the side effects of transplant and getting home. And I'm so glad that we have the chance to talk to a caregiver. And Rachael, I just appreciate how real you are about it. It is not easy for the caregiver. And I was just thinking how I hear often that, you're home now, everything's fine. She got the transplant. Like, let's get back to our friendship and our life. And it is not like that at all, is it?
No, I definitely like every little thing that happens, even minor things, you're wondering like, what's wrong now? Did something happen? Or sometimes it's something that you don't think is necessarily something to be concerned about, but you contact the doctor anyways, because you're just so used to sharing with them. So like recently, Maddie started having night sweats. And I guess maybe through all this, I haven't been paying enough attention to everything, but I did contact the doctor and I was like, oh, hey, she's been having some night sweats and it might not be anything, but I just want to let you know. And they were like, well, we're going to have you come in next week, when we weren't even supposed to come into clinic. And then they had us do a bone marrow biopsy the following week, which was last Monday. And I tried, like you said, it's like you want to think everything's back to normal and things are going okay. And I tried not to make a big deal out of it. And I'm like, I'm sure it's just a fluke. Even some of my friends were like, maybe she's just, it's the change of season or whatever. And they called us on Wednesday while we were on our way to a family trip. That was actually a trip we had rescheduled that we had to cancel when she got her diagnosis last fall. And the doctor let us know that it does look like they're seeing signs of the cancer's returning. So, I guess we can officially say she's relapsed now. So it's like, once she got the transplant, everybody's like, oh, isn't this great? Things are better now. And I said, I don't think I'll feel better until 2 years from now when I'm told, like, they say 2 years out, it's a good sign it's not coming back. And I I think it's just like that sixth sense you have, like, you don't know what's going to happen. And so that's, unfortunately, that sixth sense was correct, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, Rachel, I'm sorry to hear this, but I will tell you that we hear often that there's a relapse, and it seems way more often than not, they figure it out, and then it'll be the next chapter. And we'll all be thinking of you and Maddie, of course, and your family, and hoping that is the case. And I so appreciate you being with us today. Boy, you're sure keeping this real. And I think people are going to really appreciate this. So, Rachel, Maddie eventually needed to get back to school, of course. Could you explain what that transition was like for her?
Yeah. Advocating for her education was definitely challenging. So her school is very supportive, but it's small and it's a charter school. She actually goes to a dual language immersion school. So she's been learning Mandarin in the immersion setting since she's been in kindergarten, but they don't have the resources like our school district would have. So initially we were provided weekly sessions with her IEP specialist for about 1.5 hours. Which may or may not have always happened because we were in the middle of treatments and she was not feeling well, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Ohio state requirements state that kids who are on medical leave should receive 5 hours a week of instruction. As a charter school, they're exempt from that requirement. They were trying to do their best to find an itinerant teacher to still provide her that 5 hours, even though they weren't required. That process started in November, and it took until March to find somebody, unfortunately. And then that started, we had one person who started for a week, and then they quit. And then he found another person in April, and now the school year is almost over. So I think, obviously her physical health is the most important right now, but it's definitely something that I worry about. She's in 7th grade, about to be in 8th grade. Middle school is a pretty big time for kids.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being very overwhelming at thinking about going to high school and all the things you have to be prepared for. I recommend that parents work with a hospital social work liaison for the school to help communicate and coordinate and connect them to other resources. The one we had was really helpful, and I'm just going to try to make this all work.
Oh, you definitely have a full plate, my friend. Let's talk about some of the other things that were unexpected. You had mentioned to me, and I really never had thought about this, the limitations with being outdoors. And we all know from COVID, I mean, thank goodness we could be outdoors, but how did that go?
Yeah, I knew she wasn't going to be able to go back to school this year, or so I learned anyways. And being in crowds like that made sense to me because of the immunosuppression, her immune system being replaced. But I just didn't think that there was going to be so many limits on the things that we could do outside. Some of the big things that are hard for our family that she can't do are things like no bonfires, which always surprises people, but I guess it's because mold and wood spores and I don't know, like fungus that's in that. No swimming, like public pools or creeks. Like we love going to our local metro parks and playing around, catching frogs or toads, which we definitely can't. She's not allowed to touch animals, but they even told us to wear a mask in the garden.
Really?
Yeah, because of the flowers, I guess. Now, I can't say I've always followed the rule to a T, but
yeah, that seems a little off.
Yeah, one of her first weeks out, she really just wanted to get outside, and I was like begging the doctor, like, can we please take her to this? Columbus has a really nice zoo. I was like, we put on a mask and gloves, and like finally I think she got worn down, and she was like, okay, but go at a low traffic time.
Okay.
So we did, I like to push the boundaries, I guess. So all these things are kind of big no-nos for the first 6 months at least. So it just makes it really isolating at times for social events and activities. I think now being summer and a lot of friends are thinking like, oh, at least we can see Maddie and do activities outside, but we have to be careful with what we do, make concessions within reason, I guess. And, I try to find places where I can take and push her in the wheelchair when she's too weak to walk.
Mm-hmm.
We even did this like drive-through animal safari thing. Hopefully my doctor's not listening, but no, we had masks and gloves on during that time. It was from the car. But so just trying to get creative about ways she can still do fun things.
I'm sure you were fine. And what a great mom you are. My goodness. It's so creative too. I was thinking about the garden thing. Maybe it was even the allergies.
Yeah, it could. There's a lot of things floating around from the flowers. Actually, this weekend, I was telling Peggy, we went to a New River Gorge in West Virginia. We let her do kind of one big excursion since she couldn't really hike much or anything. My husband and my daughter went on like a zip line tour.
Uh-huh.
And so it was like a series of 7 different zip lines. And my husband's totally afraid of heights, but he did it for her. He said at one point they had to like lean forward and fall off like some kind of building or something on the zip line.
Wow.
And he was just like, she wanted to go first on all the things. And it was good there was a little bit of walking and he had to help her a little bit. But she loves thrills. So that was kind of a great option for her and really fun memory for the two of them.
Oh boy, that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
And Rachael, you mentioned earlier that Maddie has a younger brother.
Yeah, I have a son. His name is Ezekiel, and he'll be 6 also in July, but at the end of July. So she kind of, they used to play and get along a lot more now. He's the annoying little brother now that she's kind of, 13 almost. So.
Oh, yes. She's almost a teenager. And, that's a good sign when her little brother's annoying, right?
Yeah, she's always correcting him. I saw my parents this weekend too, and they were like, oh, I guess Maddie's the little mom now. We should be celebrating her for Mother's Day.
Yeah, I have one of those at home too. She seems to run the show with her brothers.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's going to change much. Well, Rachael, I understand that you have a strong faith, and I love this conversation because I do as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah, definitely staying connected to my faith. And rather than faith, I think I would just say God, because I think faith can sometimes get put into this category or this idea of like religion and some of the negative perspectives around that. But I think being connected to God and being surrounded by those who are there for me also as believers and who could just be with me where I was at with spiritual encouragement was really helpful. I would say for the most part, people were really good at not doing the cliche things like saying, oh, well, God only gives us what we can handle. And it was just really important to be able to feel free to be real with myself and with God about where I was at any moment, even if that meant like being angry or expressing frustration or not understanding. And people letting me know that it was okay if I couldn't even find the words to pray, because I definitely just couldn't even speak sometimes. Still struggle to speak the words that I'm thinking, but they would just pray for me and lift me up, when my heart was just in despair. And I'm really grateful for that and grateful for what I've been learning in my reading in the Bible and other people. I mean, I'm going through like a Bible in a year reading right now, which I've never done before because I guess I found it too boring maybe before. I don't know. But now I'm like reading about David and like it's called the Bible Recap. The way it's set up, it like pairs the story of David with like the Psalms. So you're reading about like the chronological series of events, but then also like his Psalms, and like not all of them were praises. Like a lot of times he was like crying out in distress, but still acknowledging that God had a plan. And, that's been encouraging to me and something I'm trying to hold on to, especially with where we're at today.
Wow, I'm going to have to check that out. Thank you for sharing that. So, Rachael, we had talked a little bit about financial resources. This is such an important topic for listeners. They just are not aware of all the different organizations. I know you already mentioned the Ronald McDonald House. Would you mind sharing some of the best finds that your family found?
Yeah, I really had a lot of help from our hospital social workers. So there was a social worker that helped with school stuff, but there's also just like a social worker that helps in general. And she and I had a great time because I also have a social work background. So we just had fun talking about stuff together. But they were very aware of different grants, both nationally and locally. And she connected me to several local organizations. One is called Carrie's Cause in Columbus, Ohio, if anybody here is from that area. And they're also a family that went through this, and they were really helpful with just, like, especially with us being out of town, they would send us like gift cards for groceries and gas and things like those basic needs. There was another organization, I'm trying not to blank on the name right now because they were awesome. It's another like small family organization. And for like 4 months, they paid for our mortgage and Fight Like a Dozier, Dozier.
Oh, great.
I just wanted to give them credit because like they don't have any staff or anything. It's just this dad who's been through it and he's so awesome. I know that's very like Ohio loco, but they also connected us to other national organizations that had like mini grants or like different things to support families.
And also, Rachel, LLS.
So I was just going to say that one. And the what's the BMT one? I think it's Be the Match.
Oh, well, that's NMDP, Be the Match.
Oh, okay.
They just rebranded. Rachel, we'll be sure to include all the links in the show notes.
Thank you. But I also wanted to mention too, I had a family friend who set up kind of like a GoFundMe type thing, which was like immensely helpful. And it's hard to take help sometimes, but sometimes you just have to take help.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is what allowed me to take the time off work as I needed to support my daughter. And I really could not have done it without all the friends, families, and strangers that just donated, like incredibly generous. So I just say, don't be ashamed and accept the help.
I love that. And it's so true. And that's perfect segue. Let's talk about your career.
Yeah, thanks. So because of the situation I was in and some of the financial burdens being lessened, that really gave me the ability to move my career into a direction that I've been wanting to go in a long time, which is into a consulting role. So, I've always wanted more flexibility to work and provide for my family while also having the space and ability to be there for my family in general, but now specifically with my daughter through this situation. And the job I had was a great job, but I just couldn't have that level of flexibility. So I just think that God put things in place in his perfect timing for our family, despite the anxiety, the fear and hardship. I realize none of us are alone and that there's a community that wants to help us. And I just feel even more confident now that I made the right decision when I did at the beginning of this year to transition into starting my own business, because obviously this journey is going to continue to go on for some time. And I need to be able to prioritize my daughter.
Absolutely. Commendable and so important to have that flexibility. Oh, Rachel, this has been just so great to talk to you. And again, we are here for you. We're thinking of you and your family. As we kind of get ready to wrap things up, do you have any tips or anything we may have missed? Anything you want to add? I know you have a lot on your plate right now, so.
Yeah, I think I don't know, it is kind of cliche, but, I was thinking about it again this weekend when we got this news. Like, we decided not to tell our daughter yet. We have an appointment tomorrow. And I was telling my husband and I decided, like, let's just try to enjoy this time we have together and like focus on what matters right now. And, like any trip or vacation, like there's still things like people get irritated on each other's nerves. There's a few tears shed, but it's like we were able to kind of bring it back to like, is this what matters right now? Like, let's focus on what's most important. And I think just trying to hold on to those moments, getting to have an ice cream cone with my kids, or like picking up, my daughter found like a snake skin on the trail when we were walking, which sounds crazy, but she loves snakes. Like, and they were laughing because they were like putting bugs and stuff on my husband's shirt, like those little moments. I just tried to close my eyes and, hold on to them.
Take it all in.
Because for a moment you can laugh, and for a moment things can feel normal in a space that's not normal and not okay. You can find moments of normalcy and you can find moments of joy, no matter what you're facing. And you just can't let the darkness consume you, because you got to be strong for your kid or for the person you're taking care of. And if they see you giving up, if they see you losing hope, then I think they lose hope too. So it's not that I am planning to lie or hide things. It's just that knowing when's the right time and like knowing how to refocus.
Wow. I think that was a gift for your family to do that, what you did. And I commend you for that. Well, Rachel, I can't thank you enough for being with us today and sharing your family's story. We will stay in touch, of course, and all the best.
Thank you. Thanks to the National Bone Marrow Transplant Link for having me. And for everyone that you've helped. And I hope that this is helpful. If anybody wants to reach out, feel free to share my contact info and hope that it can be helpful to others.
Well, thank you for that.
This has been the Marrow Masters podcast. If you know someone who would benefit from the information in our show, please share this episode with them. And don't miss future episodes of our show. Follow Marrow Masters for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening right now. And to connect with the National Bone Marrow Transplant Link, visit nbmtlink.org or tap the link in our show notes.